Can you describe what life was like abroad?
Very warm when we first arrived in Cyprus. We left round about mid-January 1958, arriving on Cyprus, or disembarking on Cyprus. I think it was possibly either the 31st of January 58 or the 1st and 2nd of February, I can't remember, give or take a day. To us, it was very exotic. We were young lads. Those that did go there, we all volunteered to go, from what I gather from my other pals. Because originally my posting was a home posting. In other words, I was going to Germany. I didn't want to go to Germany. And we were given an hour as road recruits after we'd come out of basic training to see or to volunteer to go to possibly Hong Kong, Singapore, Malaya, Cyprus. I think there's one or two other places, I can't remember now. But my name came out when I was going to Germany. Now, one of the chaps in the hut didn't want to go to Germany, he just got married. So we did a swap. But that's how I volunteered to go to Cyprus. Well, we hadn't been on the island 14 days when, much to the Mancunians, and a lot of my friends were from the Manchester area, and 90% of them, I think, were Manchester United fans. Very regretfully, as I say, we hadn't been on the island very long, possibly 2 weeks, when we heard that the Manchester United had a plane crash in Munich. That was in February, obviously February 1958. And some of those brave lads were in tears. That was quite an emotional for those that were more fanatically football minded than some of us. And then we were told by this time that possibly the troubles were about to start. Well, we were all gung-ho, as you are at that age, about 18 years of age and whatever. And we were told one night to go to bed in full FSMO, which is basically full military marching order, which means you have to go in your battle dress. You go in fully dressed to bed. You don't take anything off. But one or two of us, like idiots, took our boots off, didn't they? So when the alarm bells went at something like 3 o'clock in the morning, and one is running to the armory to get one's, in those days, a 303 rifle and a bayonet and a load of ammunition, struggling to tie and lace your boots up at 3 o'clock in the morning, full of sleep, and you can't get your boots on because your feet are swollen in the heat, and it was a bit of a laugh, to say the least. But we managed, and we all jumped into the 8-tonner, went down to Larnaca, which was the nearest town, and it was a false alarm. They didn't need us, so we came back. That happened about a couple of nights or so on the trot. And one day, the alarm bells did go, and that was it. And then for the next, where are we? February 58, February, March, right through to perhaps May, June, July, possibly May, June of 1959, we really didn't have a lot of time to ourselves, because we were in the busy pay office, and our duties used to cease approximately around about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, where we got the pay ready for the rest of the soldiers that were based in Cyprus. And we docked the pay depending on what it was, what it entailed, depending which regiment you were in, or what you'd done, or what rank you got, or what particular trade description you'd got, or whether you'd been promoted, this, that and the other. So we got from Part 2 orders, I think it was Part 1 orders, we took all the information off that for each man on the island, and we passed it on to where it was eventually My other colleagues in another office prepared the pay and everything. So sometimes we finished early, depending on the severity of the problem that we had to face in what was known as internal security. But it could be quite daunting at times, especially when curfew, say on what was known as a market day, perhaps to them and to us, where all the ladies or the wives and women had about an hour or so to go into town to get all the produce in. You have markets, not quite as we know here, but very similar. You got the fish and the meat and everything, all and vegetables all over the place. And if they weren't, I think a hooter used to sound, that meant that they had to, whether they liked it or not, that was it. But there's the odd occasion where some of these women group themselves into about, say, anything up to 30, 50 women, and to see them clamouring at you when there's only about 4 of you walking down the street was quite daunting. Because the other problem was, you didn't know if it was going to be a trap. Because there was a lot of flat-roofed buildings and houses in a Greek town. And you didn't know if you were somebody who was a terrorist, AOK, that's who we were fighting, whether he was going to lob a grenade on you or a petrol bomb or whatever, you didn't know. But anyway, this all made for the internal security. And then there were occasions when we had to man roadblocks during the day, and especially during the height of the season, where, as I say, we didn't get much sleep. At night, perhaps, I think was the worst time. I remember being in a roadblock on the very outskirts of Larnaca one particular night. And there was a little bit of 1 or 2 explosions in the background, but we didn't know where it was coming from. And we all as one fixed our bayonets. And this particular roadblock was way out in nowhere, and you can hardly see. It's not like street maps, not like it is over here. Even in those days, all right, they had 1 or 2 street maps in the town centres. But by and by, it was pitch black. You was only going by the moonlight, and perhaps the odd, you might get an odd light every sort of 1/4 of a mile or whatever. And there was a bit of a street light, lamp as such, but it was very, very dull. And this particular day, we saw some sidelines of a vehicle coming towards us. And there's a big drum in the middle of this little intersection, which was full of concrete. So you couldn't move the thing, so if a car crashed into it, you'd have to negotiate that first. And we pulled this vehicle up, and it would appear it was just my bit of luck to go up to the driver and ask him for his pass. Now, we were taught to say, halt, stamata de, which is halt in English, halt in Greek, and halt in Turkish. Who goes there? Which in a way it sounds rather funny now, but when you're young lads and you're in a bit of an active theatre of war thing, it wasn't very funny. Especially when there was a passenger in front who was obviously English, and another supposedly Englishman in the back seat with another Turk. Now I found out that these two, the driver was a Turk. And later I was told that the other Turk in the back seat, they were part of the Turkish underground movement, known as Vulcan. On the Greek side you had the AOK, and Vulcan and AOK were at loggerheads with one another. They'd kill you as soon as you look at it. And the other 2 guys I found out afterwards were, I can only surmise and assume that they were SAS personnel, or special operations guys. And I was insisting on them showing me the passes, and I was told in no uncertain terms that they were on special duties. We should have been told, and if I don't move out of the way, it's going to blow my effing head off. So when I got something like that, push you back away, and I said, okay, no, no, they said, it's all right, lad, so we know what you're doing what you have to do, but we're on to something else. Now, who the dickens they were after, I don't know. I can only assume they were after some terrorist, they got a tip off or something, but unfortunately, the car came our way and not somebody else's way. So that was my first encounter with, I'll just say, special operations people, but we surmise it was our friends from the regiment. When you're on duty in internal security at night, you're ready for anything, and it does make you aware that you could get your head blown off or your legs blown off, or I think this stay with me though for quite a few years afterwards. I couldn't sit with my back to a door or a window. I suppose even now I don't, subconsciously, because quite a few lads who went down to town on their own who shouldn't have done, or for whatever reason, it could have been in Nicosia or some town in Cyprus, they'd have a hand grenade that come through a window. This was even leading up to the trouble and just after the trouble when it finished, and there was supposed to be a ceasefire, but sometimes a devout terrorist wouldn't recognise that. And even now, to me, the only good terrorist is a dead one. You asked me earlier on, had I come find my, so to speak, weapon in anger. One particular afternoon, was asked to go as an escort in a Land Rover with the driver, another escort, to go to Nicosia. Well, Decalia from Nicosia is roughly 60 miles through basically bandit country. And I've got to be honest, we were a little bit nervous, to say the least, but by this time I'd been on the island a few months and nothing could touch me, so to speak. And by this time I'd been made a Lance Corporal, and I felt I was posh because I had a Sten gun. And we had 2 full magazine holders full, which was not a lot really, because if we got attacked by a force of anybody, and those 40 odd rounds could go in a matter of 2 or 3 seconds. But anyway, we had to go to Nicosia to collect a load of money, which was a few £1,000s to pay certain personnel, and at the same time we had to bring back one of my section officers from the airport at Nicosia, and the 4 of us came back, fortunately unscathed, but rather hungry and dusty and one thing, because there was no top on the Land Rover and you're bouncing up and down in it. And even in those days we didn't have armour-plated Land Rovers, which we should have done. And about an hour or 2 later, after we got back, I don't know, roughly tea time by our standards, the corporal that was actually the driver told me that the Land Rover, seemingly that was following us, had got blown up. And unfortunately some of the personnel that were in that Land Rover hadn't been on the island as long as we had, and they brought me back in midliners. It makes one think, could have been me, but it wasn't.